This is Freedom Investor Radio, and I'm John Pearl. It hit me like a freight train when I realized there was a better way, when I discovered that I could take my future into my own hands, when I realized I could invest my way to freedom. This is what I'm working towards. In each episode of Freedom Investor Radio, we will explore the tactics and strategies used by the top real estate investors and entrepreneurs in the nation. We will learn how you can start investing your way to freedom and take control of your life. Thanks so much for tuning in. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Freedom Investor Radio. I'm your host, John Pearl. Today, I am joined by Satch Bernhardt of Bernhardt Capital. Satch, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me, John.
Yeah, man. So why don't you just, I'm going to pass it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing now, and kind of your journey of how you got there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am focused now. I own Bernhardt Capital, like you mentioned, and we have a real estate investment firm. We focus on helping busy professionals, especially the aviation community, and I'll expand a little bit more on why the aviation community invest in real estate multifamily apartment complexes. So that's what we're doing now. And the way I got here is I used to be an airline pilot. So I was an airline pilot for 7 years. And I was about 4 years into it. I started when I was 21. And about 4 years into being an airline pilot, I quickly realized I don't know if I can do this for another 40 years, right? As a pilot, the maximum you can fly is 65 years old. So obviously everybody expects to fly until 65, right? And when I looked at everyone around me and like their lifestyle, I said, okay, yeah, there's no way I can do this for 40 more years. I have to find something else to do. I was always drawn to real estate. And I started looking for things that I could do outside of aviation. And I knew I never wanted to be a real estate agent. My wife was a real estate agent, and I saw how she drove people around to look at houses. And there's some people that like that, right? But just it wasn't for me. So I knew, I was like, there has to be something I can do out there where I don't need a license. So I then came across wholesaling. I don't know if you know what wholesaling is, but came across wholesaling through talking to friends, looking on YouTube, looking on the internet. And I started doing that. So I started doing wholesaling in 2018.
Yeah, Satch, why don't you, for somebody that may not know what wholesaling is, if you could kind of explain what that looks like.
Yeah, for sure. So wholesaling, and there's different types of wholesaling, but wholesaling that I was doing is wholesaling single family homes. And what it is you essentially acquire a contract to purchase a property. So it can be understood as that's what I own. They consider an equity, right? I own equity to purchase this property here. And what I sell, I don't sell the property. I sell the contract. I sell the rights to purchase this property at the price that I contracted for. And you essentially make that spread. You make the money on the spread from whatever contract price you have it for and whatever you sell it to the investor. So our customers that we sell those contracts are flippers or people that want to buy a rental property, or a lot of times hedge funds are a lot of our customers. So that's where wholesaling is. Started doing that since 2018 while I was still flying. And in 2020, my airline shut down during COVID. So at the end of COVID, it's kind of interesting story because of what we mentioned prior to the podcast, that what you told me regarding where you work right now, that you have a timeline. We kind of knew a little bit ahead of time. It was probably about 4 to 5 months that they told us, hey, you guys, we're shutting down in September, right? This is during COVID. And so it kind of put my back against the wall. At that time, it had already been 2 years of me doing this wholesaling business, but it hasn't really taken off to take over what I will consider comfortable for me to leave my airline job yet. So I had no choice. Once that they shut down the airline, I just, like I said, my back was against the wall, so I had to make it work. And that year, my business took off. And today we have 26 employees on that business. And I essentially, my intent as we started growing was to remove myself from the business so I can focus on another thing, because wholesaling was never my passion. It was just very transactional for me, just a way of making money. My passion is in multifamily. My passion is in helping busy professionals invest in real estate so they can get cash flow and they can be financially free. So now that I have fully delegated that business and I'm not actively involved in it, I can really focus on building and growing this the real estate investing firm.
No, it's great. I see. So your business is 100% virtual, the wholesaling business, right? And you were able to, you brought on a good number of cold callers and have everybody else pretty much doing all the work for you, right? Can you talk a little bit about, very curious, how the process of kind of building that up and getting the right people in place to get that operational?
Yeah. So we got 18 cold callers, and the key to do something like that is putting the right people in place to manage other people, because we started off with only one cold caller, and so it was me managing that cold caller, right? And then we started getting two, and then we started getting three, and then as you're wearing different hats in that same company, then your time starts getting limited to supervise one thing, right? So what we started doing was hiring other people to take over certain departments. So as we start scaling, we start creating SOPs, standard operating procedures for different things in the company, and we start just bringing in more people to take over. And then it's kind of like a ladder, right? So you just bring people in, you step up to the next thing, and delegate the stuff underneath. And yeah, I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but I just feel like every time we get to a new level in scaling a company, things just get pretty chaotic, right? So like we're running around doing things, and then just everything is out of control. And this is okay. We're at a new level. We need to put control in this thing. And that's when we start adding processes and systems in place to be able to, it's almost like building that new ceiling where we can step on and then move on to the next thing.
Got it. So it sounds like you created a pretty good thing in the wholesaling business. You mentioned, commercial real estate, multifamily is your passion. What are some of the aspects about investing in commercial real estate, commercial multifamily, that you love? And, some of the main reasons you transitioned over to that?
Yeah, what I love is the freedom of not having to be involved in the day-to-day operations. So I actually started investing in multifamily as a LP, limited partner, just because I wanted to see what it was like, and before I started pitching investing in multifamily to other people. So I invested as a passive investor in a couple of syndications, and dude, I just loved it. I was like, I'm getting cash flow. I don't have to do anything at all. And so that, to me, that was awesome. So being able to do that and seeing the amount of work that it takes to get a single family home as a rental property, having to put a property management company, or you have to deal with it, but all the like tenants calling you, hey, this broke. And to me, honestly, when you do the math, the cash flow that you get from a single family home, like most investors aim for what, $200, $300 a month. Dude, if your AC goes out, that's your cash flow for the next 2 years right there. So to me, the cash flow in a single family home is not really what's the value in you holding a single family home as a rental. I think the value is in the appreciation that happens 2 to 3 to 4 years of you holding onto that property. But during those 2 to 3 to 4 years that you hold on to that single family home, there were a lot of headaches that you had to put up with, dealing with tenants, evictions, whatever, right? So I never felt like I wanted to be involved in any of that. And that's why I made my switch to putting all my money in multifamily.
Got it. And just to give everybody a little bit of background, what Satch is talking about in syndication, we discuss syndication quite a bit on the show, but what a syndication is, it's when a group of investors pool their money together to purchase a larger asset, like what we're talking about here, like an apartment complex. You can also do it in self-storage, mobile home parks. but there's two parties. There's the general partners who put the deal together, and then there's the limited partners who are the passive investors. They're just contributing capital to the deal. And the passive investors, the limited partners, where Satch got his start, as he just said, are just in the deal to provide capital and get a return. They're not involved in the day-to-day operations whatsoever. And so Satch just said, in a typical single family investment, you're aiming to get, $200 to $300 a month. And, sometimes you can get more than that, but in a typical syndication, the target returns, cash on cash, 6 to 8% is pretty normal. So that means if you're investing $50,000 at 8% cash on cash return, you're getting $4,000 a year. That breaks down to $1,000 a quarter and to over $300 a month. So all of that for not having to do any of the work. And as he stated, in a single family, if the AC unit goes out, there's your cash flow. So sorry, Satch, just wanted to clarify that for some folks. I've had some conversations recently. Some people say it's like learning another language talking about this stuff. And that's kind of my mission, trying to make this more accessible to folks who don't know about it. But anyways, let's get back on track. So let's talk more about multifamily. So what does the process look like for you? What kind of role are you playing now in the commercial multifamily space?
Yeah, so I love that. And I think that was part of your last question that I forgot to answer. That in multifamily, there's what you find out, and I don't know if you've done many flips, single family homes, but
nope, never done a flip myself.
Never done a flip. So I think the typical mindset when doing flips is that you have to do it all, right? You have to manage, you have to find the property, you have to find the financing, you have to find the contractors, you got to run to Home Depot and Lowe's to find the materials to bring it to the contractors so they can do their thing. So like you're essentially doing everything, right? What you find out pretty quickly in multifamily is that everyone sort of focuses on one thing. And the guys that are operating the deals, they focus on operating the deals. They're good at finding great deals. They're good at underwriting. They're good at establishing those relationships with brokers, knowing certain areas that they focused on. And there's guys that focus on capital raising, and they're good at that, right? So yes, there's some people that sort of have it all within their own company, but for the most part, you see a lot like, hey, capital raisers are bringing money to certain people's deals, and the operators are just focusing on running the deal, right? And I love that. I love that because it takes a lot of weight of your shoulders to know that all you have to do is sort of team up with other people, and everybody's kind of focused on their own lane. And so I like that. Hey, they can rely on me to bring X amount of money to this deal, and I trust them to put together the deal. I of course do my own due diligence on my own, but I trust them to be good operators that are doing good things and their track record is proven. And I don't have to go start from scratch and start doing multifamily deals just so that 5 to 10 years down the road, I can just prove like, hey, I have a track record. I can lean on somebody else's track record to say, hey, they're doing great deals. They have proven it. We can invest with them.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the best things about this space. It's a team game. Everybody can specialize in, the area that they're the best in. And another aspect we haven't discussed yet is, how commercial multifamily is valued. It's not based on comps. The value of a property is not based on the comp of the property down the street. Maybe the rents are, but not the actual value of the property. It's based on how much income it generates. So you get a good, solid team together who can identify some issues with a property, could go in and implement a solid business plan, essentially increasing the income and decreasing the expenses, driving that net operating income up, and the overall property value goes up. So you can force value on the property. That's one of my favorite aspects of this commercial real estate space. But back, want to talk about, so you kind of target helping out the aviation community. So I know my dad was a pilot in the Navy, and he's got some friends that stayed in, got into the commercial airline space, and, they did the route that you were talking about, kind of stayed in until they were in their mid 60s and retired. So relatively comfortable life, good income if they invest right. It's not an uncomfortable way to live. What are you trying to offer to these folks that they're not getting in, say, like putting their money in a 401k?
Yeah, for one thing to me is the freedom of knowing that you can stop flying whenever you want. I've met many pilots who get their careers shortened because they did not they were not able to get a medical certificate renewed, right? So as pilots, you have to get your medical certificate renewed every single year. And anything can get you to not be able to get your medical certificate. So like if your eyesight just goes away to where you don't meet the requirements, maybe you have high blood pressure, you have something in your heart after you turn, I forget if it's 35 or 40, you have to do an EKG, which is like a heart test. And anything can set that off and you're done, right? You don't get your medical back. You get cancer, you don't get your medical. So there's so many things that is so fragile. That career is so fragile because it's based on your medical certificate or I mean, hopefully this doesn't happen to many people, right? If let's say you get into an incident, right, and then your license get revoked, you're done. So it's so fragile, and having me helping people position themselves to where they can have financial freedom. And if any of those scenarios that I just spoke about were to ever happen, they don't have to worry about anything else. I've met many guys who they were airline pilots and now they're doing like random jobs just because they had to supplement their income, right? And so I don't want that to be the story of many people anymore.
Yeah. So great thing about, investing in this space as a passive investor, you actually can get cash flow while the overall value of your investment is still increasing, as opposed to say, putting it in a 401k. So yeah, couldn't agree more on that aspect. What about let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. Investing, being a full-time real estate investor is right on par with, being an entrepreneur. Some would argue that it is entrepreneurship. How about yourself? Were you raised in a family of investors, entrepreneurs? I kind of like to talk about like the nature versus nurture. Were you born an entrepreneur? Did you kind of discover it along the way? What's your process been like in that regard?
Um, I think I think I have one of the characteristics that entrepreneurs have, which is I'm very challenge driven. And I'm as soon as I dominate something, I get bored and I'm looking for the next thing. Um, so, and I did not know this. Like I've never, and I don't know that to be a fact also that that's an entrepreneur thing, but I just see it very consistently over when I talk to entrepreneurs, right? So, my mother, she owns her own business, although she was never really able to scale it to the point where she was free from the business. And she up to still today, she still works. She owns a laboratory and she works in that business. And she has employees, but she's still an employee of her own business, working every day. And so growing up, I saw how much she worked, and I never put together. I always linked owning a business with having to work as much as she did. So I always stayed away from being an entrepreneur or owning my own business, just because that's what I picture. I was like, wow, I don't want to work as much as she does. And I didn't see her having any freedom. And that's why I seeked out for other things. And I ended up in aviation, right? Nobody in my family did aviation at all. It was just something that I thought it was pretty cool. And I said, I want to do that. And I was doing it, right? But as time went by, it's something that happened in the airlines as well, that you don't, I don't know how many people know this, but you don't, there's nothing you can do at the airlines to get paid more other than just time passing by. So you can be the best pilot in the world, and just because of that, you're not going to get paid more. You can be a first officer flying on the right seat, and the captain on the left seat can get paid more than you, and he can be a worse pilot than you are, So that always sort of pisses me off, and because it goes back to that mindset of being an entrepreneur, right? And I'm always seeking for like, what else can I do? I'm already very good at this. What else can I do? I'm bored, and I'm always seeking for new things. Same thing happened with the wholesaling business. Pretty quickly, there's no way I will still be doing that business if I was still working actively every day, because I got bored. It just quickly gets bored, and I'm like, all right, I'm looking for something else.
Yeah, you said something that strikes a chord with me. The compensation, it's not value based, it's not merit based, and that's something that I never really thought too much of it until it started to affect me where, just seeing it out. And that's pretty common in a lot of W-2 environments. There are situations where you can be paid based on the value you're providing, but oftentimes it's maybe, you're getting a 3.5% raise as opposed to a 3% raise. And that's something that's really drawn me to this world as well. And as far as, you kind of transitioned out of the W-2 world, you were starting to build something and then you were kind of forced out of it, but still you had to, I'm sure, overcome many challenging obstacles and, some growth mentally, limiting beliefs. What was the process like mentally breaking out to the point where you're fully relying on yourself and not an employer to provide your checks each month?
I'll tell you, man, it's a little bit scary at first because you're used to having that paycheck coming in. So it's definitely scary. And one of the obstacles that I faced was managing cash flow from the business, because sometimes it can feel a little bit enticing as money starts coming in to not continue to grow the business and instead start using some of the money as, hey, I'm earning more money now. I'm upgrading my lifestyle instead of I'm keeping my lifestyle the way it is, and I'm pouring the money back into the business so that it can grow. And I'm delaying gratification until I get to a point that I say this is as far as I want to take this business. Now I'm going to stop that growth phase and I'm going to start now getting some of that cash flow and upgrade my lifestyle. So knowing when to do that. And dude, I tell you, I tried to scale twice and I failed. I started hiring guys, started hiring employees, and then started growing. And then I did not manage my cash flow correctly, and I failed. I ran out of money, and I had to fire everyone, and I had to start from scratch, me doing it again. So the second time, I tried to do it again, and I scaled too fast. That same thing happened, and it just went back down. Third time is a charm, right? So third time, I started being a little bit more cognizant about putting systems in place and not hiring too fast, sort of being more strategic about who was I going to hire first, and being more strategic about the scale process.
What are some of those key lessons? Like, admire the hell out of you for going back to it and not just giving it up. But what are some of the key takeaways you took out of those first two experiences where you did fail? And, what are some of the, like some of your hiring processes? What are some of those areas?
It's funny you said the hiring process, because I think at the end of the day, that was the key, was the people. I was not putting as much effort into hiring the right people. I was sort of hiring just based on, they seem pretty cool. I think they will do the job, and I'll bring them on, and they ended up being not good. So the third time around, I'm very, very, I still today on that business, even though I say I'm not involved, I'm involved in it. I do the interviews. I'm on the interviews. I'm very involved in that, because the people that we bring on the team, to me, is the most important piece of the puzzle. If you bring someone that is an A player and they can get things done and they're pretty smart, they will add more to the business instead of just taking from the business. And I think the people that I was hiring first were doing the latter, right? They were just taking from the business and not adding to the business. And it's a skill that you learn. I don't know if there's a way to learn it without having to fail. Maybe there is. I just didn't know it. But I had to be in the trenches and fail hiring people, the wrong people, to know which ones are not the ones to hire and which ones are the ones to hire. Right now, our process is pretty. We have a lot of, someone already is in charge in our business of putting all the systems in place for the hiring, but we have like a 3-step process, right? So we put all of our posts on Indeed and all those hiring platforms. We have everyone. We don't even look at resumes. Like, I don't even care about your resume. I just care about you as a person when I get you on an interview, right? But so first, everybody applies for the job. They send their resume, right? Second step is to fill out a survey. And these questions are very simple, right? There's nothing complicated. We just want to make sure that you can follow the steps. Second step is just filling out a survey. and it's like 10 questions. Third step is sending us a video of yourself, no longer than 2 minutes, telling us why you're fit for the job. And dude, you will be amazed at how many people apply to send their resume, and then the people that fill out the survey, the people that send the video, and out of those, like, the funnel gets so small. And I could not tell you like exact numbers, but like, let's just say out of 1,800 applicants, I think it was, for the past like 4 months, 50 send videos, and out of those 50, we pick like 10. And you will not believe how many people we tell them very strict, no more than 2 minutes. They send like a 5-minute video. It's like, dude, I'm not watching that.
Yeah, as soon as you see it's over 2 minutes, just delete, right?
Yeah.
Can't even follow instructions.
Yeah. And so then we only interview those 10 people right there, right? Those 10 videos that we like, we interview those guys. And then after that, if we're only selecting one candidate, then out of only one of those 10 people will be chosen to continue down the path. But yeah, see, like that just works. And every single person that we hire in the company has been like that. And it's phenomenal.
Got it. No, it's good stuff. So you went through the process scaling your wholesaling business, and then I want to hear a little more. What was the process like of getting into the commercial multifamily space? It seems like you had a really good thing going. I know you said it was transactional. You were wanting something a little more, hands off. But how did you get involved in the commercial space?
Yeah, so that had always been my target. I don't know why. I don't know if since before I knew of all the benefits that were in multifamily, I always saw the bigger buildings and they just attracted to me. I figured, hey, one single family home, it can provide good income. A big apartment building must be 100x, right? So I was always attracted to it. I took many courses, I learned how to like underwrite deals, and I knew a lot of multifamily. I just never really took the leap into it because I don't know, I can say many excuses as to why I didn't do it, but the years went by and I just never made the jump. Finally, in 2021, I said, I went to a course. I went to an event. I went to an event from Grant Cardone. That's what it was. I went to an event for Grant Cardone, and then I realized when I was down there, what he spoke about was not important to me because it was stuff that I already knew. But by talking to people that were in the audience and that attended the event, I realized that what I did not know before, which is everybody can have different things that they bring to the table in a multifamily deal. And that, to me, that's when it clicked. And I said, okay, that's it. I'm jumping in. I thought I had to do it all. So I could never really find my way to like jump into multifamily because I was like, man, I don't have the right connections for real estate brokers to send me big deals. How am I going to prove that I can even do a big deal? How am I going to prove that I can do a 150 unit deal if I've never done one? How can I just didn't know which way to start. And that conference changed my mindset when I found out that I could focus on one thing, just go focus on capital raising, and then you can just get in the game. And after that day, I was like, all right, that's it. I'm going all in. And that was the mindset change right there.
No, that's great. Yeah, the events have been completely transformational for me. And like you said, the content's great. What the people are talking about, whoever's up on stage, is good, but the real value is getting in and talking with the other people who are actually doing it. Sometimes the people on stage can feel like a celebrity, like, oh, I can't do that. Like they're someone special. But then you get to talking and you get to meeting some people out in the audience. You're like, hey, you're kind of, you seem like, a normal person. Like I think I could do this too. That's definitely been true of my experience as well. So you mentioned capital raising. Tell us about what the capital raising process has been like for you.
It's not easy. I got to tell you, it's not easy. I thought it would be much easier than that when I first started. And there just seems to be that people are so comfortable doing what they have always done and what their peers do as well, which is like investing in 401ks. And they just doing something out of something different than what they have always done just feels uncomfortable for people, right? So I joined a mastermind. I don't know if we're in the same mastermind, but it's essentially a mastermind for raising capital. And one of the focuses is on putting out educational content. So that's been my focus for this whole year, just putting out educational content, speaking at events, just showing real facts of stuff that we're doing. I feel comfortable speaking about what I do because I have been in the shoes of passive investors, and in every single syndication that I've raised money for, I've invested my own money too. So it's not like I just tell people, hey, go in, invest. I don't have anything to do with it. My own money is going into along with yours. And so little by little, more people are turning over to seeing what I'm doing. And I find the best and easiest investors that come to me that want to invest are people that are friends of other ones that have already invested in. And I don't directly tell them like, hey, come invest with me, but it's people that have already invested with me say, hey, this is what it's been my experience so far investing with Satch. Here, give them a call and talk to them. So it's definitely not as easy as I thought it was going to be, because to me it's just like a no-brainer. I'm like, wow, this is so awesome, but people just don't see it that way.
Yeah, totally. And, I can relate with that. I got started off in the limited partner space, the passive investor space, and that, like you, and I think like many folks who start investing and learning the potential, you just kind of feel obligated to spread the word about it. And, not enough people know about this amazing investment vehicle. You can literally become a real estate owner and experience all of the same benefits of owning real estate, what most people view as, buying a single family house and managing it, maybe buying a few of those. Like, you can do that, receive all those same benefits, but not have to do any of the work and have professional investors managing it, people who are expert in their different field. Like you were saying earlier, everybody specializes in one aspect, and you get to benefit from that by investing in these deals. So yeah, I just feel obligated to spread the word about this, and kind of you get so much more control. You can choose where your money goes. And to me, it's just a no-brainer. Of course, when I first learned about it, and like many people, they think it's a marketing scheme, or, like a pyramid scheme or something like that. And so it does take some education to kind of help people understand what it actually is. But yeah, man, I always love hearing that, people are spreading the word about it and getting money off of Wall Street and in the main street. So
yeah.
All right, let's talk about, what's a typical day look like for you? I want to hear about, as a full-time investor, entrepreneur, how do you manage your time? What are some of the kind of the techniques? How do you get your day started? How do you roll into the day? What's that look like?
Dude, there's no typical day. Yeah. So as far as I gotta be honest, it gets pretty hard. I'm gonna show you something this, for those that are probably not gonna be able to see this, I have a list with like my Friday, and I have a bunch of stacks, right? So like this may seem very caveman style, like old school, but literally every time I go to sleep, I go on my notes on my phone, and I just start writing all the stuff that I gotta do the next day. And I have tried all kinds of apps and things to like keep me on track, but they just don't work, because they're hidden somewhere in my computer. And as soon as some other web page is on front of it, I just lose track of it, right? So having that little note of paper next to my computer, dude, it's like my life saving. So I just keep track of my day like that. And I start delegating a lot of things. I don't know if you did that exercise, but I did an exercise where there's a bunch of apps out there that you can track like 15-minute intervals to see what you're doing. So every 15 minutes, I will keep track for a whole week to see what kind of tasks I was doing. And I started delegating all the stuff that were very like administrative tasks that I saw, okay, this just taking a lot of my time, but it's not complicated to do, right? So I have an assistant. She works with me full time, and she like handles a lot of those things, right? And I just focus on more like activities that really move the needle forward. And but going back to managing time, so like I delegate a lot of stuff like that, and what happens is that I don't know if you ever read this book from it's called Profit First, and Michael talks about this concept, which is called the Parkinson's law, not the disease, right? Parkinson's law, which says that essentially anything that, like, if you set yourself to do X by tomorrow at 5, you're gonna use a whole time until 5 tomorrow to complete it, right? And so same thing goes with work. If I don't put a stop at myself, I like to say at 5 o'clock I'm gonna be done regardless of what I did, dude, I'll work until 2 a.m. And so to me, just putting those hard stops and hard deadlines on doing things is what's get my wife from like killing me, I guess. She obviously, she gets mad that I work too much, but just having those things is how I'm able to balance being there for my family and also accomplish things in work and business. And I know I could do more, but I need to set myself those deadlines to be able to. I need to cramp up as much work as I can within this allotted time frame and just get it done. If I didn't get one thing done, two things, right? I either need to get better at managing my time the next day, and then I need to delegate more stuff. But I'm pretty strict on making sure my timelines are always kept, because otherwise I'm just going to keep going into all outside those time frames.
Yeah, you mentioned writing stuff down. So like I got my daily planner right here, and like I'll tell you what, the guy I was 3 years ago, 3 years ago even, I would have laughed if I would have looked to the future and saw myself just planning out my days like that. But the stuff works. Like, and you're talking about the time audit, right? I've done that as well. And, it seems crazy while you're doing it, but what you learn about yourself and how you're spending your time. So we're talking about literally every 15 minutes, you get a reminder to input what you're doing at that moment. And then you go back and you look at it and you see how much time you spend doing things that you could either have somebody else do for you or doing things that don't even matter. That's what I found about myself. I was doing a lot of stuff that doesn't even matter. And,
yeah.
Once you start paying attention to that stuff and getting intentional about how you're spending your time, you can become a lot more productive. And then when you track each day, did you accomplish what you're trying to get done that day? Yes. Good. No. Okay. You got to get back to it tomorrow or schedule more time to do it. Then you can start really making some progress and, accomplishing some meaningful goals. So yeah, that's awesome stuff, man. I couldn't agree more with how beneficial those practices are. But I want to talk about mentorship real quick. Have you, I know we're both in Raise Masters, mastermind together, and just getting around other like-minded individuals and, being surrounded by folks who are doing what you want to do. That's extremely helpful. What about mentorship and coaching programs? Any other stuff like that? What kind of role has it played in your journey so far?
I that has made a huge difference. I don't think I would be where I am today if I had not taken mentorship. I tried to do the other business that I own, the wholesaling business, all on my own first, and it wasn't until I hired the right mentor to coach me and do things the right way that really things also added to things taking off. And had I known that, I had the wrong mindset, which was I'm gonna save the money that it takes to pay the mentor, and I'm just gonna, I think most people feel like, oh, I'm pretty smart. What can there possibly be that I don't know, right? And that's the killer right there. That you don't know what you don't know. You just think that you already know it all, right? So I don't definitely, if I have something to say about that, is don't think you're saving money. You're actually losing money because you're losing time and you're just failing. Eventually you'll probably figure it out, but it's going to take you a lot longer. And as opposed to getting the shortcut, getting a mentor and skipping the line.
Yes, exactly. Likewise, that's been my experience. Why wouldn't you want to pay somebody to help you avoid the mistakes that they've already made. You know, they've been down the road before you. They're doing what you want to do. Why not get some advice from them? But Satch, got time for one more question. This is a question I ask all of my guests. You alluded to it a little bit earlier with my background. So I work at Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant. It is currently set to shut down in 2025. So once I found that out, I made it my mission to replace my income from the power plant with passive income from real estate. Being that you've kind of made the leap already, what is one piece of advice you would offer to folks who are looking to escape the W-2 world and create a life of freedom and control through investing or entrepreneurship?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's two ways to go about it. One way is to, and I hope I don't sound like I hate W-2, right? It's not meant for some people, but some people do. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with if you want to have a job and go to work, because there's pros and cons to both sides of the equation, right? Having a W-2, you might be a little more relaxed and you don't have stress over the business and what's going on. Being a business owner, you have a lot of stress sometimes, but you might have a little bit more freedom, right? If you do it well. So just wanted to put that out there first, so it doesn't sound like I'm just bashing W-2, right? So having that said, there's two ways I think you can go about it. You can stay at your W-2 job and make as much money as possible and invest it in, and obviously you can invest it wherever you want. I suggest something like multifamily syndications that require zero. The learning curve is so small if you just want to be a passive investor, and you can start investing in real estate syndications and start building up your capital and your cash flow. And you can retire whenever you reach that point that you're comfortable, where your the cash flow from your investments meet or exceed your lifestyle expenses, right? That's one way. Second way is obviously you can always leave your W-2 job at any point and go and start a business. Just there will be struggles for sure. It's not an easy path, but if you're in a position where you can make that leap, in my opinion, the only way to do it is to burn the boats. I try to do the safe way of like, I'm gonna sort of bridge the gap between still having a job and try to do the business owner thing. But I kept telling the same story to myself for 2 years in a row that, next year I'm gonna make good money to replace my other income, and then things are gonna take off. It's the other way around. Like, once I left that W-2 job, that's when things took off. So I know it's not as comfortable for everyone to do that. If that's a route you want to go, I think that's the fastest way to really make things work. Put your back against the wall, and at least, hey, if it doesn't work, you can always go back and get another job, right?
Yes. No, absolutely. Couldn't agree more with that stuff. That's great advice. Well, Satch, if people want to get a hold of you or follow along with what you're doing, where should they go?
Yeah, so I actually have an ebook out there that has all my information, and I put a lot of content into it where you can learn more about real estate syndications. If you go to my site, www.bernhardtcapital.com/ebook, then www.bernhardtcapital.net/ebook, you can download the book right there. It's completely free, and it's awesome. I put all the content and everything that I know about syndications in there.
Great. Yeah. Well, we'll link that in the show notes. So you guys, if you want to interested in checking that out, just go down to the show notes and head on over there. Satch, thanks so much for joining me today. It's truly been a pleasure hearing more about your story, and look forward to, I think I'll be seeing you in Miami here in a couple months at the Raise Masters event. So looking forward to that. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, Satch Bernhardt, thanks so much.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Freedom Investor Radio. If you like what you heard, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thanks again for listening.